What is your trust? I'm just going to do this 1 to 10, and everyone in the chat as well. We talked about the offense. I think I'm giving them like a 9 out of 10 trust level with this defense in the playoffs. If, and I'm going to put this in there, if they get CD Deuce, if they get James Houston and Aleem Neal comes back,
Wow.
right now, if those guys return from injury into the playoffs, what is your trust level with this defense? 1 to 10.
It's at a 6.75 to 7 with those guys back. And the only reason it's not an 8 with all those guys back is because James Houston wasn't exactly lighting the league on fire at the start of the season. He was great at the end of last year, and I still have some high hopes for him. But you never know how he's going to recover from this injury. Will he be able to get back to what we saw last year after the injury at the end of the season, headed into the playoffs? That's the question mark. And that pass rush, man, CD Deuce was going to help a lot because that secondary has been exposed the last couple weeks. He will help a lot. Both being a ball hawk, going and getting takeaways, but also being able to fill in at cornerback if needed. He can play all the secondary spots, so that's huge. And obviously, Aleem McNeil's by far our best interior defender. So that would be a very good thing if we got them back. I'm just not sold yet. Does the pass rush get that much better? What's in the
Jeff
chat?
Ivory in the chat. Shout out Jeff for tuning in here. Appreciate you a ton. He said Bohanna makes it 11 out of 10. I think Bruce Irvin makes it a 12 out of 10.
Who knows? You never know what you're going to get out of Bruce.
No, you don't. But here's some numbers for you. With all these guys back, God Hates Cowards, 7 out of 10. Cam Boyer, 8.5 out of 10. Shane Daniels, 6.5. William Vanderswag said an 8. Daniel O said 6.5.
Cam Boyer 8.5.
Cam Boyer, he said 8.5 a few times now. Super Scion Lions said 7. You know what? I would take this, to be honest. I'm for sure. If the Lions offense, like we just had this conversation, if they can carry this team in the playoffs, this offense being the top 5 offense, and your Lions defense gets you a 7, like if your faith is 7 out of 10, all these guys return, I would love that, especially to make a run at a Super Bowl. I would love for us to have that faith of a 7 out of 10 of a defense, guys returning and being that full, and this offense and Ben Johnson, give me that.
Yes,
Nick.
Yeah, I think everyone's sipping way too much Kool-Aid.
7 out of 10,
yeah, bro.
Everyone's getting slammed on the Kool-Aid,
buzzing,
and I'm not taking a drink of it.
Oh,
in this scenario, I'm at like a 4.5 out of 10.
If
we know
those guys return,
even if those guys return, the way they've looked recently, like Broder said, the spot to James Houston, we don't know what he is yet this year. We all want to think he's the elite sack guy that we saw at the end of last year when our defense was getting those takeaways and looked dominant. But we haven't really seen that as much this year. Last week was a great start with the 2 turnovers. If we can keep that up, then my number will go up, having faith in this defense.
All right.
Gotta keep turning the ball over.
Bryce Bennett, Woodward Sports Chat. Appreciate you tuning in, Bryce. He said 7.5 is not a Super Bowl team defense. Again, Bryce, I'm going to give these stats that I gave out last segment. I don't know if you were here for the last segment, but 4 of the last 5 Super Bowl winning teams in the regular season, their defense was ranked outside of the top 10 when it comes to yards per game given up. 4 out of the last 5 Super Bowl teams. 11th, 17th, 6th, 17th, and 21st. So I don't think you need a 10 out of 10 defense to go win a Super Bowl.
you don't.
Don't think you do.
You don't. If you're going to struggle, and this is a great point that God Hates Cowards wrote. Goff has shown, and I'm going to put it, he says Goff will say the entire offense, led by Goff, has shown that they can run the clock down from 6 minutes left if they're leading. Victory formation wasn't a thing until this year, which is so true. We now have an offense that, when time's running down at crunch time, they're able to control the ball at the end of the game. They were winning against the Saints. It's happened at least 5 or 6 times this year that they've been able to go into victory formation. What that means is that the duel at the end of the game between offensive coordinator and offense and defensive coordinator and defense is being won by the Lions. They're using their running game and they're using their passing game that includes Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Josh Reynolds. They're figuring out, and that's a huge key, especially if you have a defense that's struggling. How are you going to be able to keep the ball out of the hands of the opposing offense in the playoffs down the stretch?
Yeah, and I'm going to keep doing this. Bryce, again, this is a battle. We're having a Bryce battle. He said, and we're at 20. Correction, the Detroit Lions are currently at 14th.
Ooh.
So yards per game given up, defensive total, they're at 14th right now. So that is, I'll correct you on that one. I'll make sure that we do have facts because right now that would be ahead of the 3 of the last 5 Super Bowl champions that they would be ahead of. And I know if you do watch the game, you still get that feeling where there's a guy like you still need that extra juice, you need that bump. We don't have it, but when you do, you're at 14th right now, and when you do get these guys back, that could easily go up to the top 10.
Yeah,
that can easily move up. CD Deuce is a huge piece. James Houston is a huge piece. Aleem's going to be a huge piece when he comes back.
Do you think, Booner, Broderick Martin's going to be a huge piece or going to be a piece for this team this season or the playoffs? What's your gut tell you?
Broderick Martin? I don't think so. I don't think it's, I think he'll make a little bit of an impact. But like Tim said on the heavyweights, it's, hey, this team, like, they might have drafted Broderick in regards to let's just
He's a developmental.
build him up. Let's build him up. And that's how it felt. And we had this conversation before the show to where it does feel like a couple of these guys they did draft in regards to that. And Broderick didn't play at like a high level in college either.
No.
So it's like he's still kind of getting into this. There are times where he was out there and he made a little bit of an impact, which is good. But I don't think he's going to be like a huge piece on a team that's going to make a run, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that maybe it is time for the discussion. And as we lead into the rookies, I want to focus on the third round, the picks of Broderick Martin and Hendon Hooker. But before we get there, I think what's hard for me to grasp, Brad Holmes, he wanted a DB. He was going to draft Devon Witherspoon if he was there. He signed Emmanuel Mosley. He tore his ACL 2 snaps in this season. They didn't go out and get a defensive back, a cornerback. They haven't gone out and addressed a top-line defensive tackle or a top-line edge rusher outside of Aiden Hutchinson. Like, what is the plan? Like, what was the plan this season if they took Broderick Martin knowing he really wasn't going to contribute this year? Like, we all thought he was going to be in there more than we've seen him. But if they knew that they were going to develop him this year and he wasn't really going to make an impact, your third round, you spent 5 picks on 2 players who aren't going to play this year.